Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaron Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
Yo, I'm doing good.
Matt, that's great. Matt, you know what else is great? Or who else is great? The guy beside me, to my right, Rakush. Hey, man.
Hey, man.
How are you doing?
Making lots of mistakes this week.
Me too. Me too. Matt, what have you been up to?
Jared, I ate way too much food today.
Guys, so did I.
Nice.
I am a full boy right now. Rakush, are you a full boy right now?
Yeah, pretty full boy, man. Like, me and Matt went for dinner before this, so we went to this fried chicken place, and they put, like, this carbonara sauce on top. I didn't realize it had shrimp and squid in it. I don't eat shrimp or squid.
Are you, like, allergic, or?
Thankfully, no. I just don't like it. But somehow I was able to finish that plate. But then we went to DQ, and they had, like, these new blizzards and, like, a new dip and stuff. So I got, like, a cotton candy blizzard. It was pretty damn good. Man, is it too much.
Yeah.
Guys, speaking about food crimes and food mistakes, you need to visit me at the other Saturday morning HQ, the other mistake zone, because, guys... You know me, I'm on that TikTok, and sometimes I buy into the trends, and my mistake of the week is the Ninja Creamy, the ice cream machine.
Oh, true.
And guys,
Jared.
I've been eating hella ice cream.
Yo, Jared, what flavors have you been doing?
So realistically, I think this is just me. For lunch, I usually just have a smoothie. And I've been turning those smoothies into ice cream. And it's one of those things where it's what I eat anyway, or like what I consume for lunch anyway. But now I get it in ice cream form. And guys, it's a process where when I make a smoothie, it's okay, put everything in my blender, good to go after a few minutes. But with the Ninja Creamy, I gotta blend it, put my smoothie together, put it into the ice cream pint bowl or whatever, freeze it for at least 10 to 24 hours, and then take it out and put it in the creamy to blend and turn into ice cream.
You know what you could do with that ice cream?
What?
You could take a little bit of chocolate and, like, you could, like, melt it and then coat the ice cream in, like, a chocolate layer. And then you just have, like, you know, just ice cream with a chocolate layered ice cream.
You're going to frost an ice cream cake?
Yeah, basically.
What? I could do that, but that would add to the calorie count. And guys, I don't want to be that person, but I think the ice cream creamy has made me realize how calorie intensive my lunch smoothies are. And now I feel real bad.
What are you putting in them? Like, are you doing a lot of, like, milk?
It is... So it's ice, usually a cup and a half of milk. So it's like the serving size, just a bit more, just under a serving size of yogurt. And then 1 or 2 bananas. I think the bananas are also what pushes it up. And then some peanut butter.
I think the peanut butter is what pushes it up.
Peanut butter does push it up heavily, especially... It depends on what peanut butter I have, like, on hand, too. If I have that Kraft stuff, unfortunately,
a spoon of that is like $2.50 right there.
That's bad. And yeah, so now moving forward, now that I'm more conscious about my calorie intake, because guys, we're old. I hate to break it to you guys, but we're old. So that's my mistake this week. But guys, I made another mistake this week.
Okay.
And it's Matt, you know me. Yep. You know how I love the VTubers. Rakush, you know me and Matt love the VTubers.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We did a whole episode talking about... Well, not a whole episode.
Yes. Did you listen to the episode after with my great idol introduction, Rakush? Man, so good, so good. Don't talk about it, Matt. But anyway, one of the things that has come out of, specifically the HoloLive community is the fan games, Matt. Like, I feel like there are a lot of quality fan games to come out of the HoloLive community. And the most recent one is Idol Showdown, which is a traditional fighting game. It is 1v1 with assists.
Yeah.
And your base roster is 8. Hololive talent from the Japanese branch, and you have a handful of assists, with a majority of them coming from the Japanese branch as well. I believe there are one or two from the EN branch, and then Risu from the Indonesian branch. But the game has 3 more characters coming up. But again, it's just another quality fan game to come out of this community, off the heels of Hollow Cure, something we're most likely going to talk about when
Someday.
0.6 releases on Steam, which was announced recently, Matt. And, there are other games like, what was that Neon Crash knockoff? The Chasing Hope one?
Yeah,
the
Chasing
Iris
Hope,
game?
the soda game, yeah.
Yeah, which was also really good too. But the reason why I wanted to bring up Idol Showdown is it's the eve of Street Fighter 6, essentially. That's coming out in a few weeks. And
can't wait to watch people play that game.
Really, you're not going to check that out?
I'm terrible at those games. I've made peace with that part of my life. So I don't try to play those games. I just love watching people play those games at a very high level.
Oh, so you've advanced past us.
But with Street Fighter 6, I know we're talking about Idol Showdown, but like, does something like the modern controls for Street Fighter 6, does that appeal to you, or would make you more inclined to check it out?
I think if the game is cheaper down the road, I would love to try it out. But I think as far as like a day one release trying sort of thing, I kind of know my gaming habits to know like I wouldn't really be able to catch on to those things in a way that I could enjoy it. So I've really just kind of really started watching people play sports, which is a crazy turn of events for me watching people do esports. But yeah,
Do you think that like Street Fighter would hit PS Plus or Game Pass?
not anytime soon. I don't.
Yeah,
think.
I think Street Fighter has, before come to the base game has come to something like a PS Plus or not necessarily sure for Game Pass, but even with Game Pass, you're getting the base game. So I feel like even if it were to come to Game Pass or eventually to PS Plus like that, it would be when DLC is out. So you'd have to buy into the DLC fighters. But coming back to Idol Showdown, and the reason why I wanted to ask you, Rakush, about Street Fighter 6 and the quote unquote modern controls, is that playing through Idol Showdown, of course I want to check it out because it is a Hololive fan game of quality, and me busting out the fight stick once again made me realize, wow, I'm really bad at fighting games. And what I do appreciate from Idol Showdown is the single player component, where it has this roguelite aspect to it.
Classic.
Which, Matt, you know me, I love me those roguelite modes. But again, it's another love letter to the community where you have all these different items that you can unlock to kind of give you either active passives, or even you can activate them in game or just have different passives for your character. And of course, all those different items correlate to some reference in the Hololive production as a whole. And then you have the different shop vendors and representing all the different branches from EN to ID to even Hollow Stars, which was really nice to see. And once again, when you see that love letter aspect, it's you want to consume that to the fullest. But my issue again is I'm bad at fighting games, so I'm hitting walls after walls, even against like CPU. Like I'm not daring to go online because I know how that's going to turn out. Especially since there's no clear matchmaking currently, I believe, implemented. But another aspect I wanted to kind of bring to you guys is when you start off Idol Showdown, you're given a choice of 4 items representing Hollow Tempest from the EN Hollow Stars branch. But there are 4 items that you can pick as your starting item, which is one gives you, it will block automatically when you're not attacking. The second item is one, you can do essentially one button auto combos. The third item is just no effect, just dry run. And then the fourth one is like a hard mode where the enemies will be tougher, but then you'll get more rewards out of it. So taking away the last 2, I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about the first 2, which is, the auto block and then the auto combo, which are clearly noted for as beginners. And when I think about fighting games, it is all about having a good solid foundation. I feel like part of the reason why I'm not able to grasp fighting games is I've never had that experience with the game, growing up, so I could create that solid foundation.
Yeah.
Where when I look at a game, especially on the eve of Street Fighter 6, saying, "Oh, you can do auto blocks or you can do auto combos," which might teach you quote unquote bad habits. I think that's where my kind of conflict comes of, okay, these two items might make this experience a lot more enjoyable for me, and I'll be able to see more of this roguelite single player experience. But at the same time, I might be learning bad habits. But at the same time, if I'm not fighting competitively, like, then who cares if you learn bad habits at that point? So that's kind of where my conflict is right now when it comes to Idle Showdown of, do I pick the beginner item so I can see more of the single player combat or content, or do I, try to chip away and get better? Because again, Street Fighter 6 is around the corner. They have their Yakuza, what's described as a Yakuza light single player experience. That, of course, I want to like partake in some capacity, but I guess when it comes to items such as that, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on beginner items that might teach bad habits in a genre that is at its core really foundation based. And I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts on that.
I fully understand where you're coming from with regards to teaching bad habits in these kind of games. But I feel like if you are someone who's not a dedicated fighting game player, you're gonna create bad habits anyway. Right. I think like the most fundamental one is button mashing.
Yeah.
At least with the auto combo one that you're talking about, you're gonna at least get something out of it. And I think knowing that you have the auto combo, can you have the auto combo and the auto block on at the same time?
No, they're two separate items.
Okay.
So it's only one of these.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I think that having that lets you see what links into what combos into what, at least, instead of button mashing and kind of getting a 2-hit combo out.
Okay.
And I also feel similarly with the block one, because I think the important part of it being when you're not attacking shows you all the times you could actually technically be blocking. Right. And I think that is, if you are semi-seriously looking into fighting games, those I think are actually two pretty okay handicaps to have. Of one, it teaches you combos, like what goes into combos, and one, it technically shows you when you're vulnerable and it doesn't punish you for it.
That's a cool way to look at it. How about you, Rakush?
I'm a little bit torn on the auto block in a fighting game specifically. So,
mind you, this is just a single player experience.
Sure, yeah, but it's against CPU, right?
Yep.
Like, yeah. I think the one button attack combo I think it's fine. I think it's a way of allowing a player to feel even a little bit immersed in the gameplay a little bit, in the sense that like you're at least confirming the hit. You're at least confirming the combo yourself. So yeah, it's button mashing, but like there's a sense of like involvement in that. To me, auto blocking takes a very fundamental part of fighting games out of it, which I think is great for a very non-serious player like myself. If it's just like cheese the mechanics, the attack's coming, stop attacking, let the block be done kind of thing, right? Like, a weird comparison to make here is sometimes when I'm playing like NBA 2K, right? Like, I will not be the on-ball defender. I'll let the CPU defend for me, and I'll be doing the off-ball stuff because it's just easier to do it that way. So, and that's like, I make that comparison to say like sometimes it's okay to just let the CPU do it if you're not that interested in like figuring out all the nitty-gritty like gameplay mechanics. I do see what Matt's saying though about like, it shows you how the blocking animations look at the very least. I just don't know, without actually getting a feel for it, how, like, theory versus practice, right? Like, if you're just showing the person the theory versus, like, allowing the person to practice it, I don't know how much a person is learning versus, like, how much a person is reading or watching something. So I see a benefit to it for a casual gamer. I do not know if it is like if we start talking about like in competitive settings, I feel like that move is not going to be allowed, obviously. But like, I think ultimately then at that point it would just come down to what you want out of the game, right? Like if you are just looking to experience the story and the single player and stuff, but you don't have the capacity, the time, the skills, whatever it is to learn all the mechanics of the game, then yeah, I think the auto block is great. But it's a very 50-50 proposition for a fighting game for me.
Yeah. And I think this is just like something in my weird brain of, I want to play, the tried and true way. Like I want to play like I know I'm going to drop this eventually, but I want to drop it the quote unquote right way when in the grand scheme of things that doesn't matter. And I'm like, not allowing myself to actually enjoy all this game has to offer before something new comes around the corner and I miss out on it. But yeah, that's kind of how my mind was working this week. But before we move on, Matt, this base roster of Idle Showdown, 8 characters, 3 more on the way. I know fan favorite, especially between the both of us, Picora has been kind of teased to be one of the characters. That means, Matt, 2 more characters. Who would you put in Idle Showdown?
I mean, Idle Showdown does not have a fighter rep for the overseas.
Right.
And I feel like that, like having them just as assists maybe isn't like the best. Like, or having them just as assists maybe already confirms that I would expect one EN and one ID to be there.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. And Matt, I'm going to ask you, who would your EN and ID rep be?
I mean, I'm biased towards Iris for EN. I don't think it's going to be her. I think realistically it's going to be, if Mori and Kiara weren't already assists, those would have been my picks. But I think the next...
Kiara's an assist. I don't think Callie's an assist.
Oh, is she not an assist?
No, I thought she was an assist as well, but she isn't.
Oh, then it's Callie.
Okay.
100% it's Callie.
I think it will probably Callie, just because aesthetically I think she looks like the most fighting game character, and her having a scythe, it really helps too. But if not Callie, I could see Crony being a fighting game character.
Oh, I was going to say Gura. Just popularity wise, I thought Gura would be the pick.
Yeah, that's true. You can probably put Gura
And I don't think they have a lolly character as a playable.
Nope, you don't. And who's your ID pull, Matt?
I feel like it's probably Muna. Like, she's not an assist, is she? She's just a costume?
She's just, no, she's not even a color palette.
Oh, yeah, like, she has no representation at all. It's her, or maybe Kobo. But I think Kobo might not have, like, if they go with my thought of Gura, I don't think they put in Kobo.
Right. I think it is Muna as well, but if Ollie wasn't the collection NPC who is fully voiced, which was impressive when I saw that.
Oh, nice.
It would have been Ollie, I think, just because I think a zombie character, sort of like, I forget the character from Skullgirls, but I liked Skullgirls, but yeah, I probably see Muna as an ID rep. I think even though you have Rabaru as a shopkeep, honestly, going back to your Idol episode, you guys, I think putting a Hollow Stars rep in there would be kind of dicey. So maybe they might be stuck as items and NPCs, which is fine. But that's my time with Idol Showdown. It's like, again, I love the community games that are coming out of HoloLive, and just to see them being released on Steam is actually just really surprising to me as well for free-to-play games of this quality, and seeing that Hollow Cure is also coming, I think, with the next major update is also something that I'm really excited for, and hopefully my save transfers over. I know that you said it should transfer over, but I know to get it working on the Steam Deck was a little weird, so hopefully that picks up as well. But, boys, I know why we're all here.
Yep.
Matt, you said it last week. We got Zelda in on the brain, so much so that we had to bring Rakushin
many tears
to talk about some Zelda. And Rakush, since you weren't here last week, how have you been crying?
Crying and dying, bro. Crying and dying. It's been an interesting experience for me. So I think I'm roughly 11 to 12 hours into this game at this point. and I'm still learning mechanics.
Did you play Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, I played like 2 completion. One of the rare games in the last like 5-6 years that I was like, I'll play 2 completion. Not like 100% find all the seeds or whatever, but like as much of that.
I feel like when someone says I've completed Breath of the Wild, like fully completed, like everyone, it's always the side of except the seeds.
Except
like,
yeah.
I did as many shrines. Did I do all the? I cannot remember if I did all the shrines or if like 90% of the shrines or whatever. But like. As far as like, getting that full experience, getting the story, getting all the weapon upgrades and stuff, yeah, like did that when it came out. And I think it's Breath of the Wild has aged in a way where I'm comfortable saying it's one of my favorite Zelda games ever. Now, Tears of the Kingdom, I was excited for, but I also was going in a little bit tepid because I knew the building mechanics were not something that I've really enjoyed in past games. Not Zelda games, but like, any kind of games that are building in it. I don't really have the creative brain to kind of like put the shapes together in a way that like, if someone doesn't tell me how to put the shapes together, I don't know how to put it together myself kind of thing, so that's where it gets a little difficult. And I've genuinely actually had a difficult time learning all those mechanics in Zelda and like really just kind of like figure it's not clicked for me yet. Like it's not all come together in a way where I'm kind of like, these building mechanics are like must use for me in a way that's like outside of shrines. Like I actually try not to use them as much as possible just because it's just not my jam in a way. I feel like that's actually limiting how I'm exploring the map. Because I'm also wiping pretty hard against enemies because I'm quite weak right now. Don't have strong enough weapons. Don't have enough weapons. Don't have enough shields. Don't have enough arrows. Just like I'm wiping pretty hard against like the pirates and stuff, and the goblins. And I know like the way I've seen clips online and stuff. There's ways of using the building mechanics to make your life a whole lot easier to make the stuff work. I just haven't been able to figure it out yet. So, this might sound like I hate the game. I don't. I actually have really enjoyed it so far because it has a lot of what made Breath of the Wild one of the best games I've ever played, right? Like, it still has that, like, open world, like, go do what you want kind of vibe to it. It's just they've added something to it that I'm trying to understand and figure out and, like, just kind of play with a little bit more. What I am a little bit concerned with is that 12 hours in, it doesn't feel like it's been enough time to learn all of the mechanics yet. And I'm just kind of curious how much longer it's going to take. I don't think this is a game where I'm necessarily going to stop playing it, but I would like to learn the things sooner than like, later at this point. So, yeah.
So, yeah, you're still waiting for that moment where the building at the very least like clicks it with you, where you can kind of incorporated through your kind of normal playthrough.
Yeah, and I definitely had a moment with the Sky Islands that it worked, like, where like that clicked for me. I'm like, this is pretty damn cool, right? Like that really worked for me. But the building, it's like oof, a little dicey right now.
Like if I had to be honest, I'm kind of in the same boat just because I'm going back to Matt, our conversation last week, and you were telling me all these different things and the fact that we're here like a week later, I'm sure you can tell Rakush and I just all the different tech that you've discovered.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I'm still kind of in that weird area where I'm sort of getting a feel for where I can incorporate building, not just in shrines, but like in combat scenarios where a good opportunity to use, Ultra Hand would be when to properly, or when I'm traversing, I need to always remember, okay, I can ascend here. Like I just need to look up or, I recently just unlocked auto build and that's kind of making gears turn in my head of, okay, maybe I should start building a lot more freely just because I can now pull it up whenever I need to, in theory, if it really clicks for me. But yeah, kind of like you, Rakush, my combat experiences are still more reminiscent of my playstyle of Breath in the Wild, where I feel like I have all these tools at my disposal, but I'm not actually fully utilizing them, where I after our conversation last week, Matt, I thought, okay, this game can be so much more. And like, I hate to come back this week and say it's still the same game experience that I had last week, except things here and there that I've done to make that experience a bit more questionable, but we'll get into that later. But Matt, week later, how are your thoughts on Zelda with, I guess, a week and a half under your belt now? And two, Matt, you got to dish it out. What's the new tech that you're discovering?
Okay, so I think from last week, I think I was also kind of behind on how to incorporate building into my playthrough. But I think auto build is the turning point on when you really start using building.
Right.
Just having the ability to go into your menu, pick out your gachapon devices, drop them, and then auto build them into a thing really quick is, I think, game changing.
Right.
I was on the, what do you call it? Just like a Zelda subreddit, or maybe it was specifically a Tears of the Kingdom subreddit, and they linked to another subreddit, which is called Hyrule Engineering. And it is just people showing off their auto builds. A lot of these are like people, for the most part, building mechs and kind of like, hey, look at this cool thing I did.
Jesus.
But watching those really kind of put into perspective how you can use parts.
Right.
Regardless of, these are things I am never going to build, but seeing the small mechanics of what they did is something that's something I'm going to incorporate into how I play. For example, two of my combat auto builds are the big wheel and a flame emitter. You put a big wheel on its side, you attach a flame emitter to one of the spokes. One of the things for the big wheel is that when you attach something to one spoke, because the big wheel has two spokes on either sides, right? It retracts the other one. So when you put it down on its side, the flame emitter is on the top, the big wheel can't turn. So the spoke turns, and that makes the flame emitter kind of shoot a circle. Okay. So you basically just have a spinning sentry. Or a spinning AoE where nothing can pass without getting lit on fire. The other one is, further down the line, you get something called a device that's kind of like a Roomba that homes in on enemies. So having a Roomba with a frost emitter and a shock emitter, basically it shoots forward, it freezes somebody, it gives them the wet condition, and then the shock emitter shocks them, and when the shock hits something that's wet, not only do they drop their weapon, they create a huge AoE shock that makes anybody else in that area drop their weapons. And just all these things coming together, not only does it make battle so much more interesting, because one, the fire flame emitter, use it outside, you just have updrafts all the time.
Yeah.
So you updraft, you ride your glider, you go into bullet time, you just shoot dudes. They can't do anything to you. Your shock thing is like just like killing them. Also, if you do this in a really bad area, your frames go to garbage. Like, it becomes a very, very even more of a chunky game than usual. But it really does, I think, open up the combat, especially with regards to traversal. Like, I have like a unicycle that I travel around on. I have that's really just small wheel control and stabilizer. Like, those three together lets you go wherever you want on the floor for a very cheap price. I have a fan bike, which is two fans and a controller.
Yeah. Like a hover bike?
Yeah, hover bike that basically gets you wherever you need to go. As far as the sky goes, I've saved the... This is actually one that I saw that I directly copied. The multi-stage rocket. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
If you attach a rocket to a wooden board. Oh, one of the things for auto build is that you do not need the material immediately there for you. For the price of, I think it's 3 Zonite, it'll automatically generate whatever's there. Huh. So the multi-stage rocket to go up really quickly is just one board that's just flat on the ground and then a rocket just pointing upwards. And what you do is you spawn multiples of these. You don't attach them together, but you pile them up so that one rocket is on each side. And then you hit the first rocket, it shoots all of the platforms upwards. And then before it pops, you pop the next one in the order. So it shoots the remaining two like upwards. And that's your multi-stage rocket to just get up into the sky. And it basically shoots you higher than a tower will shoot you.
Holy crap.
Rakush, we're playing this game wrong.
I don't know if I want to keep playing this game anymore, dude.
Multi-stage rock is good. Oh, you know what's actually a really good one to save? Ascend platforms. Which is you take a stake, you attach 2 logs to it, and at each log end, you put a platform so that you can just ascend up mountains.
Oh my god. Rakush, we're definitely playing this game wrong.
It seems good. Also, I want to clear up actually a mistake that I made last week.
Okay.
When I was talking about like the 7 heart health thing. So there was this, apparently this was already something in Breath of the Wild. I was just unaware of it. This game, and I guess Breath of the Wild, had 1-hit death protection.
Okay.
Which is basically if you are full health and an enemy hits you with just 1 attack, you won't die. You'll have a quarter health. And that is why I thought the 7 hearts was what brings you down to that, but it's actually just that. As long as you have full health and an enemy hits you, you won't die from just 1 hit. Unless it has something like fire, so it's an AoE, or you're falling. Like, those are the times when it won't kill you.
That kind of makes sense now because, of course, my algorithm is feeding me all Breath of the Wild shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the videos I've seen, people just like stick to 5 hearts.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense if you want to, min-max your stamina as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Where I did the 7 hearts thing, and I think that's like keeping me at a good place, but I'm close to finishing my first like full circle of stamina.
Me and Matt were I was showing Matt a little bit of like the game on my end, like, where I'm at and stuff. And I think we were just talking about this mechanic earlier as well. And like, I realized very quickly, I'm like, it's not worth it at early game for me to get more hearts right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if I got like a 5th or a 6th heart, I'm wiping pretty badly in combat. So I was like, yeah, let me just get more stamina. And like the moment I got more stamina, because now I'm at 1.5 stamina bars, like it's allowed me to do like longer glides, longer like, just jumps and stuff like that. And climbing is easier. It almost feels like that's the way to go early game. But I'm sure there's different builds that like, make it that like if you get extra hearts early, like that also benefits you as well.
But yeah, Matt, just listening to you talk about those combat encounters is when again it's spinning the wheels in my head of, okay, what else can I do now that the game is, I think, slowly opening up. I think, Rakush, for you and I, it's also the fact that since we're quote unquote early on, that a lot of the tools aren't necessarily like available, just because Matt, you were mentioning a few things that I don't think I've ever like even have seen yet, and I think I'm roughly around the same time as you, Rakush, like around like 10-12 hours, but at the same time, guys, in classic Jaren fashion, Matt, let's go back to the Elden Ring episode.
Yes,
I have around 140 hours, and you weren't surprised when I said maybe 20 of those hours were spent grinding a certain bird on a ledge and a hill full of enemies to kind of use a AoE attack on.
Yeah.
And would you guys be surprised if I said that of my 12 hours with Tears of the Kingdom, maybe 3 of those
Jared, from what you've told me, 3 seems the low end of that number.
Guys, what if I told you that if you really want to get your hands dirty and turn your fingers into spaghetti, guys, I hate to say it, but it's not surprising. I think I'm addicted to duping in this game. And I've been duping a lot because Matt, Rakush, I'm close to full batteries for this game. Oof. And I remember talking to you and Julian because for some reason, this game has a lot of ways to dupe. Or like, I feel like every day for the past few days, like Julian will link me, hey, check out this duping TikTok. Now you can get 4 items for the price of 1 random item. And it's honestly become, it's tickling that sick part of my brain where, okay, I need to grind in this Persona game. I need to make sure I'm 10 levels ahead of the next dungeon boss. Sure. And for some reason, doing the finger spaghetti of, okay, I need to hit ZR to pull up my bow. I have to hit up to attach the item I want to dupe. I have to pause the game. I have to drop the bow. It's currently equipped. I have to equip a new bow. I have to double tap plus as fast as I can. And then I have to drop that bow and then pick up the 2 items that spawn because the cache has the original item in there. It's wild, you guys. And I spent like a good, in terms of trying to max out the battery, it's not only do you have to dupe the large zonite, but then you have to go to the smith or whatever, the processing NPC. You have to buy 50 of the crystallized charges at a time, teleport back to or one of the stables or the landing bed, make sure 1 in-game day passes, go back, and guys, I listen to a bunch of crime podcasts while I do it, and crime is on my mind because that's what I'm doing, cheating at Tears of the Kingdom. And Matt, I turned off auto updates because you don't know what update will break the dupe in you guys.
Jared, you just don't have to pause the game. Never turn the game off.
That's true. And that also brings me to my next issue, guys. Also addicted to time scumming for amiibo rewards, which in turn gives you a lot of food and gives you a lot of weapons. But I think I told you before, Matt, but when you amiibo dupe, I think you have to go into the depths a bit, just because without the depths unlocked, I feel like you don't get the clean weapons from the amiibo.
Oh, I never knew that was a thing.
Just because I might have got my partner into duping as well. And when I was duping on her Switch, I noticed I was getting a lot of rusty items still because she hasn't been to the depths.
Yeah.
But I've been to the depths, and I'm getting those clean weapons, you guys.
Those clean-faced weapons.
And then, guys, I equipped my strongest black lizard horn or whatever. Dupe the item. Come on, guys. This game's amazing because I'm a dirty cheater. And I feel like, again, having max batteries is making me skip a bunch of platforming because I'm trying to get to the... Unfortunately, I wanted to get the Rito dungeon completed by the time we recorded this, but getting up to there feels like a dungeon in itself.
Because I kind of liked it.
But, Matt, I literally just attach a rocket shield, blast up as high as I can, and then glide to like the next platform, skipping a bunch of platforming. And Matt, if my shield breaks, I have another one that I can just dupe.
Classic.
I'm a cheater, you guys. But Matt, speaking about the Rito dungeon, this is something you wanted to kind of discuss.
Yes, it is.
And what about the Rito dungeon makes you excited about kind of possibly the end game, but just future aspects of Tears of the Kingdom itself?
I mean, I'm guessing that you guys being here means that you guys don't mind spoilers on what's going to happen with this dungeon, and I guess like mechanics related to it.
I mean, there's 3 other dungeons for us to discover,
but the way that this works is, I think one thing that I like more with regards to Tears of the Kingdom over Breath of the Wild is that it doesn't. I think you can go to the castle right away,
right?
Still in this one, and just like try to finish the game, but this one I think even doesn't really say to do it,
right?
Because where in Breath of the Wild they're like defeat Ganon as your first quest.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I really like that.
Like that was like really good back then, but like I think now not having that as your first quest really adds for me because of the storyline that goes on with regards to the dungeons, which is like, hey, it's the kind of sage story again, where hey, you all like these people failed to defeat Ganondorf, so now it's all up to you, Link.
Right.
And like Link's friends. And first off, I think the dungeon design is like very nice. The use of Ascend is wild with regards to puzzle solving. And I know that I've watched, and I guess more so listened and watched podcasts and videos of people playing not Breath of the Wild, what is this game called? Tears of the Kingdom. And a lot of the complaints that they have is forgetting that Ascend is a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that once you go through a dungeon, you will immediately remember that, or you will always remember that Ascend is a thing, because Ascend is required to, in particular, the Rito dungeon is required to beat the Rito dungeon. I don't think you do that dungeon easily at all, if at all, without it. Because so many mechanics and things are blocked. So you can't get to them without thinking about, oh, I need to go here and ascend here to get into this room because it's literally locked.
Right.
And I think that's like such a good teaching dungeon because it really is the dungeon that they force you to go to. Because like just from the starting village, you're like, okay, yeah, go northwest because that's also where you first meet Impa.
Yeah.
And she talks about the geoglyphs, which is another thing that I really, really like, which is, I think, a huge improvement over the pictures from Breath of the Wild.
For storytelling.
Yeah. But like going back to the dungeon and kind of the more spoilery stuff, which makes me more excited for the end, is that obviously you're going to go there with one of Link's friends. Jaren, I guess like you're already aware of the mechanic that gets added.
Yeah.
Rakush, I'm going to spoil this for you, and this is going to maybe make you want to go there more. But it is the ability to have a gust of wind at your back when you're paragliding, so you can go in a direction faster.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And that is such a crucial mechanic. It's good that they push you into that direction to begin with. But obviously, you're going there with your pal. And obviously, they're not going to be with you the whole time. So, at the end, when you finish the dungeon, you are able to summon their avatar. And when you have their avatar, you can use their ability. But when their avatar is with you, you get to have a posse. And I don't know, being able to roll around this time with a posse of like just basically ghosts is wild. And I feel like that's something that leaning towards the end of Breath of the Wild, one of my biggest disappointments was actually the fight with Ganon.
Yeah.
I thought it was so plain just because they couldn't expect you to have beaten all the main dungeons. Whereas here, they're kind of within the story, within the mechanics of the game, they're basically forcing you to go do these dungeons, even though you're not necessarily required. And having just a posse of Link and his homies going to go like fight Ganondorf like at the end seems like really good to me.
There is something really interesting in this game compared to Breath of the Wild. It doesn't feel as isolated or lonely in this game. And that definitely is by design, because even with the NPCs in this game and the parts that I've played so far, it's a lot more populated. It's a lot more spread out. The villagers aren't just like stuck inside the town and there's like this weird magic wall where like you won't see them outside of it. Like they're roaming. They're like actually doing things to quote unquote liberate Hyrule kind of stuff, right? Like there's a pretty interesting like unspoken growth to a lot of the returning characters where like you can almost see what like Zelda kind of returning and like, you know, taking back the reins of Hyrule Kingdom allowed the people to feel, and like the confidence that it brings back in these characters as well. And that's actually a pretty interesting like dynamic in this game where like it has not felt like an empty world anymore. It 100% feels like you are constantly surrounded by someone, something, like you know, people, and like you're not alone. And that's a pretty fascinating evolution of this game.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, like there's still a lot of big open fields. There's like a lot of areas that are kind of barren with your occasional like monster camp. But at the same time, to your point, Rakush, and it's one that I agree with, just having more random NPCs out and about, where in Breath of the Wild, if I saw a random NPC like in the middle of nowhere, it's, oh, this guy's going to be a Yiga clan member, I'm going to fight him. And surprise, it's a Yiga clan member, I'm fighting them. But even in Tears of the Kingdom, just seeing the sign guy, seeing the whatever the plant people are called, seeing that how his friends separated, and I got to like truck him across anywhere, or the Koroks? Yeah, the Koroks. Yeah. And just seeing like random people just walking in about, like even shopkeepers are saying, hey, you know, I'm part of like the surveying team or whatever.
Yeah.
And chances are you'll still find someone who's going to be a member of the Yiga clan. But at the same time, it is all coming together to feel a lot more like this world has grown since we've been in here from Breath of the Wild. And at the same time, I was telling Matt the other day, it's nice to have a direct sequel in a way where characters recognize you, and it feels good to run into a character who, you know, treats you with, who makes Link feel like a big deal at this point, just because I kind of hate that in sequels where it's you're starting from square one, and you know your reputation might not follow you there, but you'll have like the occasional NPC of, oh, you look like that legendary swordsman, but like for the most part, like maybe eight times out of 10, you will see someone who recognizes you and acknowledges what you've done, and emphasizes with your quest to find Zelda, which is really nice and makes the world feel a lot more connected as well.
It's also cool, like how how people react to Link kind of shows in a different way, like how news spreads in this world as well. Like just like it's not difficult to access information and stuff like that, and it feels like they've I could be misremembering Breath of the Wild, but it feels like the whole like newspaper part and like the spread of information and stuff is a lot more advanced or different in this game, or present in this game, I guess, like than it was in Breath of the Wild. I again could be misremembering that.
Do you guys use swords? Like whenever I see somebody like a random NPC, like Jaron was saying, like, oh, you look like that swordsman, or oh, you must be the swordsman like Link or whatever. And every single time I've come across them, it's just like a spear is on my back or a dumb hammer.
Right. Yeah.
What weapon do you guys usually go to? Do you guys use swords?
In combat, I'll use whatever my strongest one-handed sword is, or two-handed sword, plus mixed with like my strongest fused material, which is like right now is like that lizard horn or black lizard horn that I said. But I try to use those because, as you guys said, like some of the fused weapons you make are really dumb. And like I need to have one, rock hammer or whatever, just so I can destroy rocks when needed. But I hate when I'm talking to someone and that's equipped, because it just looks so off-putting, where I'm one of those people where, no surprise, I was the person when we played WoW, I'd have my in-town outfit and my like adventuring outfit. And it's the same thing here. If I'm like near NPCs, gotta switch to a cool looking sword because Link's a cool dude and not his dumb piece of giant wood with a boulder attached to it just so I can smash through rocks. But in combat I try to use swords. But like currently, before I was addicted to duping and all the weapons that I got from Amiibo scumming, it was whatever I had on hand. How about you, Rakush? What's your arsenal?
Yeah, are you far enough to have a preferred weapon?
Not yet, but like I have been using one-handed sword and shield as well, because I'm finding like I haven't figured out the timing on the two-handed swords. Although the better weapons that I have right now are the two-handed swords, I just haven't been able to really figure out how to swing them correctly. I do think my preference is going to remain a sword or like some variation of a one-handed weapon, because I have like one of the cooler things I've done so far, which is just a very basic thing, is I've put like that fire zonite device on a shield. So it basically just turns it into a shield flamethrower. And like that was fucking awesome. Like that was cool.
Rakush, what if I told you if you duped a bunch of large zonite and then converted them into crystallized charges, you can get max batteries, and that flames or shield would last a lot longer.
That would make one of my tower capture jobs a whole lot easier, because I've had a very difficult time getting one of the towers so far because too many enemies. So yes, I would love to hear.
Don't worry, it just takes 3 hours worth of duping, and then you have to do the depths for a bit, but I think you'll get there eventually.
I don't know how you can do that, Jared. I got to, I don't know, like 20 dupes, and I was like, Jared's a monster.
I told you guys, grinding has done something to my brain, which is not good. But, guys, speaking about our time with Zelda right now, what's your current project that you're working towards? I know I said I'm still trying to get to the Rito dungeon. Rakush, you're fairly still, as weird as you said, 10, 12 hours, you're still trying to sink your teeth in it. Like, what's your current Zelda project?
I think it's exploration and just understanding the mechanics of the world a little bit better. Getting used to the combat. I think it's just a very beginner kind of like part of like, just what I want to do with this game. I understand it's going to take a little bit of time probably at this point. Like I can't expect it to be like in the next 2 hours. Like I'm going to get all this stuff done, but yeah. I think that's my current goal with that game.
Okay, Matt, with your next level tech, what are you currently working towards in Zelda?
I'm mapping the sky.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't, for the most part, whenever I get a new, what do you call it, tower. Like I've gotten all the towers now, and when I was initially unlocking them, I would usually kind of ignore the sky, really, because I would just highlight like I don't know 5 or so places on the floor, or however many of the pillar of light like points of interest that you get, and then I just go follow those for a bit, or like clear out all of those, and then I'd go look for another sky tower. So now that I'm going through actually going back to this real quick, one thing that really pisses me off about this kind of game is finding something that you know is something, but you haven't talked to the relevant person to know how to use it.
Right.
And there was about 2 different types of things, but I've come across like, I don't know, like 10 of them, 10 like instances of them where I know that this is something, I just don't know what to do with it. And now I'm just kind of revisiting trying to find all those places again, just zooming in on the map, seeing, okay, here's one of them, and flying, or just gliding towards them.
Okay. Cool. Man, Matt, I feel like every week when we check in, you're going to drop some like crazy tech on us that will make me want to try it. But by the time I get home and have the time to try it, I'll totally forget what you
just
said.
gonna dupe stuff.
I love duping you guys. It's so good. But
dude, I don't even have a horse in this game yet, and you guys talking about like duping and like laser or like lightning orbs or like
it's
you know,
okay.
just
use an amiibo right in front of a stable and you're good to go.
Yeah, I might just have to do that.
But so Matt, you're exploring the sky, but now that I've explored a bit of it, and it's been a week later, what are you thinking about the depths? Have you explored it a bit more? Is there anything more to do down there other than the occasional story thing and like grinding the higher end enemies?
Actually, I guess like if you weren't duping stuff, the ground or the underground is where you're going to get all your zonite. And I also arguably think where you get the best weapons. Because like you said, the underground has like those kind of shadow people or just like weapons in general that are not affected by whatever rusted them on the surface. And it made me kind of realize how good the location loop is in that game, because you're underground, you're spending arrows, you're spending bright bloom, you're spending sun, the sun ingredient that lets you clear away cursed hearts. Like kind of all of those are consumed underground, but you're getting zonite, and you have to spend the zonite in the sky area. So you're in the sky area spending your zonite, and that's where you're getting your like crystals. You're getting more bright bloom. You're seeing places to go on the kind of like normal surface, and you're back on the surface, kind of like collecting. That's like the only places where you can get food and ingredients that you're gonna need to adventure in either of those underground or sky areas. And I think that kind of loop of feeding you through these areas is actually really, really well done.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's kind of also just speaking to how much bigger this game feels, just because, I've heard a lot of talk about some of the first impressions of Tears of the Kingdom, where that, the main level, or I guess just the mainland of Hyrule, is, for the most part, lifting off what was established in Breath of the Wild, where it is nice to kind of go to familiar areas and say, oh, I kind of recognize this, albeit like slightly different than before. But when you kind of incorporate not only the sky element, but also the depths, I think it just really goes to show how big this game is. And one, it's a wonder it's running somewhat smoothly on the Switch, and at the same time it's kind of also wild where so I had that one introduction mission just to go down to the depths, and once you clear it, for now at least, maybe it's because I didn't finish the first dungeon, I have like no reason to go back into the depths as of right from like a lore perspective at the moment. I know that changes once I do finish the first dungeon, because I believe Joshua will have more reason for you to go down there as well. But at the same time, it's, I think thinking about the game overall really does feel kind of intimidating just because there's so much that you can do at any given time. And I know one of the points of discussion I saw, being floated around is, would you consider Tears of the Kingdom, like an immersive sim, something similar to a Hitman, something similar to like a Dishonored or a Deathloop, where or even a Far Cry, where you're given so many different tools to tackle one scenario. And I think it's also getting to that point of like choice paralysis when you have so much that you can in theory do at any given time, but then at the same time it's, well, I guess I'm taking out my shield and sword and hoping for the best, which I feel like you and me are kind of still in that camp, Rakush.
Yeah.
But I guess, Matt, as I said when we talked about Redfall, who has experience with more immersive sim games, like what are your feelings with that level of choice coming to Zelda a week and a half with it?
I like it a lot more now. I think once you have like the breadth of choices that I have right now, you kind of settle into a sort of what is optimal and what is the fun way to do it. Yeah. And I think choosing the fun way to do it is probably the way to go. Because like that stuff I said about the wheel and the fire trap and like the automaton that's kind of following people, that is definitely not the optimal way to go into a fight. It's just the fun way to go into a fight. And I think that like having that mindset is a lot better. And I don't know, like you said, like for like an immersive sim type thing, just having all these choices, just, I don't know, makes it better. Like I could just go in with like a two-handed sword and just spin to win towards them. But instead, hey, I'm going to go in, I'm going to use a frost wand. So I'm going to use like the one-handed version. So it swings instead of like thrusts.
Right.
So that I can like get more people frozen. And then, hey, I'm going to switch over to my lightning spear, punch someone, they're wet. So it does the explosive thing. They've all dropped their weapons. So now they're all going to be scrambling. And I don't know, that kind of just loop of combat makes it a lot more interesting to me. Yeah. Or you can just, kind of play Sniper Elite. And I don't know, Rokisha definitely hasn't run into it, but Jaren, you might have. Have you run into the bow that charges with battery?
No. Oh,
there's a bow that, as long as you're holding your right trigger down, it consumes battery and that increases its damage. And it's like kind of like how straight it'll fly to like a certain point.
I need to find that bow and I need to dupe that bow a bunch of times.
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
And kind of the gameplay process of like the Red Moon or the Blood Moon or whatever it is, kind of just bringing the enemies back and slowly making them stronger, I think is even like a better reason to just kind of go around and kill dudes, because then you're not going to get, the regular goblin horns. They're all going to at some point be blue or at some point black or some point silver, and whatever the one above silver is. Like, it's just, I don't know, really entertaining way to like, I think, go around and do it.
Man, Matt, you're describing the game in something that I hopefully I get there in time, because that's the Tears of the Kingdom I want to be playing right now, instead of, man, this enemy is kicking my butt. But going back to the depths and what you said, Matt, about just how you have that one resource loop, I feel like the depths has been an interesting experience, just kind of exploring, trying to get to. All I knew was there was an ability there that supposedly opened up the game for the most part, and I needed it just because that's where you get the materials to try increase your batteries. But I feel like that was kind of an exhilarating time, because it is a lot of going through your arrows, going through your bright seeds, just to be able to see. And I think what quote unquote scares me the most is just like how tough the enemies are down there.
Yes,
you're more likely to run into what were they called, the Lionels. You're more likely to run into like different world bosses, which gives me this, like, I know I told you about it last week, Matt, how like the first time I played through Breath of the Wild and like something like one-shotted me, and I thought, oh man, this is Zelda's take on Dark Souls. Is this like Souls now? Like, I feel like the depths is literally like Dark Souls at that point, just because of all the different enemies that you can run into. And from, I guess this is a slight spoiler, and maybe you can confirm it too, Matt, but apparently like the dungeon bosses will eventually spawn down there, which is also really cool. That
was a very surprising thing to just see. Like after I was just wandering around, I looked to my left because the dragons are also down there.
Yeah.
So it plays their music when they get close to you. So I went to go look for it, and I just turn and I see the boss from the Rito dungeon. I'm like, the fuck is that doing there? And I wanted to fight it, but I was like, I don't know. I had like 3 hearts uncursed, and like that's basically like, no, I can't do this right now.
I think one of the, I guess, detrimental things for me is the fact that this is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, and like Yurikush, like I played a lot of Breath of the Wild, but it's been such like some time since I did that. So the first time I ran into like a Lionel in the depths, I thought, man, I fought a lot of these in Breath of the Wild.
They're way more fucked up now.
I don't know. I couldn't even process what to do against it. Where I tried fighting a Lionel, it didn't go well for like, I tried it like a few more times and thought, I'm going to come back later. And then like even grinding or trying to find dragons and trying to find scales or horns or claws, and then thinking, wait, I did this before in Breath of the Wild when I was upgrading my armor, I believe. And yet it's something that's so familiar to me, yet like so alien at the same time, where I landed on a dragon trying to collect scales and thinking, I've done this before, but I don't know what you're actually supposed to do. Like, oh, am I supposed to shoot its claws with like my arrows, or its horns with my arrows? Okay, I'm doing that, nothing's happening. So it's this weird relearning process of I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, but I'm not. And I guess Rakush, like, since you came from a lot of Breath of the Wild, like, are you getting the same feelings of like this weird deja vu that you can't really grasp your head around?
There is 100% a lot of that, where it's a lot of familiarity, but also a lot of newness. Like I didn't even realize that the map geographically still had the big towns where they were in the original game. Like things already look so different that I'm like, dude, like there's no way this is all like, in the same regions, right? But yeah, like there's a lot of stuff from that original game, but also it's like brand spanking new to a point where it's like everything is new. Like everything is a discovery all over again in a cool way.
But yeah, it's still familiar, but like it's still different in a way. Like, but Matt, some things never change. K Village still runs like poop on this here, and that's kind of wild. And I guess, Matt, since you've played a lot more than we have, from a technical standpoint, how's it holding up for you? I know you mentioned that if you go into some hectic combat encounters, you might see a lot more depths, but has it been, pretty solid for you? Or now that you have more hours under your belt, have you noticed cracks showing?
Yeah, no, Kakariko Village is still kind of really pretty bad. I think the next worst place right now is the Gerudo area. That whole area kind of just has a sandstorm going through it, and I feel like that, because similarly for me, Kakariko Village gets the worst when it's foggy, and the sandstorm in the Gerudo area is kind of doing the same thing for me. Like I think when they're adding kind of like the fogs or the kind of rain clouds and stuff like that, is when it gets the worst.
Like whenever there's particle.
Actually, whenever there's like particle stuff, because I guess also what I said earlier, the fire and stuff is all particle effects as well.
Yeah, that it makes sense. This is not a system built to handle a lot of things on the screen at once.
And I think that's like the surreal thing to think about is, let's not sugarcoat it. Like this game leaked before it officially came out.
Yeah.
And the fact that, a version of Tears of the Kingdom exists like right now that's better than the one that we're all like playing is also kind of wild to me, where whenever the Switch 2 comes out, which is I think rumored for like, what was it, 24, 25? Like,
I thought it was 25.
Yeah. At this point, like, they're going to double dip for this one. And I'm really curious about that, where maybe with that release, do we see, like, I'm expecting DLC for this at some point. I'm not sure how elaborate DLC for this would be. And I guess the final question for this week, for our weekly Zelda check-in, is when you think about DLC, I know with, the original Breath of the Wild, the DLC there, that was like kind of the Champions Path stuff. They added a bike. It really didn't feel that substantial to me, at least. But considering what Nintendo is doing with their DLC offerings now, like, we look at the Splatoon stuff with the Octoling expansion and like the other Octoling expansion for 3 coming out. You think about the substantial DLC that Mario Kart's getting, not to mention Xenoblade Chronicles, or even the Fire Emblem 3 houses and like the 4th house as the DLC. And I guess peering into the future for a game like we all haven't finished, like, what are you expecting DLC wise? Do you think we might get something more substantial this time around, or do you think it might just be more challenge based stuff?
I feel like it's probably going to be more challenge-based stuff. I don't know if you add another big bad after, like, Ganondorf. Right. Like, depending on how this game ends, like, maybe you reseal Ganondorf and, in the DLC, he's unsealed again. You gotta, I don't know, chop off Link's other arm and, I don't know, do something with it.
Yeah, right. I feel like a boss rush is probably, like, it seems very likely, the way you guys are describing it. I mean, I know there's a lot of Lionel stuff that came out in the Breath of the Wild DLC, quality of life stuff. So maybe there's going to be something that allows you to store pre-built things without, like, having to spend money on it, that kind of stuff. I suspect, like, they're going to take a look at whatever, like, the big piece of feedback on quality of life stuff will be, and they'll try to build around that or work around that. Zonai seems to be like the gimmick of this game, for lack of a better term. So probably like Zonai related armor, if that doesn't already exist in this game.
Or just even more devices at that point.
Yeah, more devices.
Further break
stuff.
it.
Yeah. Like maybe some puzzles would be a cool way of going as well, but that might be a little bit more complicated to add.
Yeah. I think you mentioned this, Matt, where I would love to see a transmog system. Just because in my amiibo scumming, I realized, why wouldn't you like, of all of the classic Link costumes, why wouldn't you just use the Fierce like the Majora's Mask stuff, because that gives you the attack bonus, while everything else is just like the armor, which doesn't make sense to me. Where I kind of hope that they do add that, just because there's a lot of nice costumes this time around as well.
Yeah.
But I know this has been another beefy episode, another beefy check-in, but I want to end, guys, with one additional aside. And Rakush, in the beginning of this episode, you said, or in the middle of this episode, beginning of the Zelda segment, you said, I'm not really a fan of building. You know what that reminded me of? Rakush, do you remember when you were working at EB Games?
Do I ever remember when I worked at EB Games?
And I tried, and then I was with you, because I think I was using your employee discount or something.
Okay.
And I wanted to buy Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and then you were trying to talk me out of it. And then I brought it up to your cashier friend, and then he was like, do you just want this because of the Banjo-Kazooie DLC? Here. And then he just gave me the download code for Banjo-Kazooie. And Rakush, I wanted to play Nuts and Bolts. But at that time, that was 2 against 1, and I thought, I'll take my free DLC.
Oh, man.
Dude, I don't even remember that.
I remember it, Rakush.
I'm sorry?
No.
I'm sorry. I don't.
I love I'm sorry question mark.
Yeah. I don't know if I should be, but I apologize if I hurt you there, Jeremy.
Maybe that's why we can't build Rakush. Because we never had Nuts and Bolts in our lives.
What we need to do is build our hearts up first.
I don't know, Rakush, because we can't build anything in Zelda. Maybe Matt has a fully built heart.
Do you know how to build a heart?
It takes, I think, 4 essences of light.
Okay, do you know how to make, not make love, but do you know how to build love? Make love?
Yeah, well, I think I have it in my auto build history somewhere.
Somewhere there. But guys, good check-in. We should do this again when we play more Zelda.
Yeah, can't wait to talk to you guys next week and say, yeah, I just used a new Sword and Shield, while Matt's like, hey, yeah, so I built like this passenger airplane. It's like a 737, fits like 20 of the villagers in there.
I have a specific auto
my
build
God.
that I use to transport those stupid Korok. The backpack Korok, because they're too heavy for my hover bike.
Dumb backpack Koroks.
My last question to you, Matt, just because Rikush is dying right now. What am I supposed to fuse to shields?
I fuse carts. I fuse plate, just like rocks.
Okay.
I fuse springs. I fuse rockets.
Okay.
Yeah, those are all my go-tos.
The rocket one sounds interesting.
The
to me.
spring one is good too, because when you shield jump on it, it just shoots you up like a spring.
I don't think I've learned a shield jump yet.
You shield and then you press, I think, X and jump and then A.
Yep.
That's how you shield.
Oh, okay.
But if you pause in the middle of your shield jump and then you equip one item, one item that you only have one of, and then you equip 4 items that you want to duplicate, and then I believe you unpause, you should duplicate all those 4 items and lose that one single item. I'm missing a step right now. I don't have the timing down, but next week when I do have the timing down, I'll have so many more items as you guys.
Jared, you could just get the items.
I'll have so many more items next week. But guys, that has been another beefy episode of The Mistake Zone. I want to thank my best friends, Matt.
Yo, I was here.
I want to thank Rikush.
That was a lot of mistakes.
I want to thank Idle Showdown. I want to thank my Oshis. I want to thank Hyrule Castle Crying. I want to thank Auto Build. And I want to thank Ascend. I want to thank forgetting about Ascend, because I forget that it exists a lot. Because Matt, not going to lie, every time I jump down a well and there's no ladder out, I spend a good few seconds going, how do I get out of this well that I jumped into?
Oh my god, use Ascend. Oh, I'm an idiot.
Have you met the NPC that you're supposed to report your well progress to?
No, I've just been fast traveling out of the wells.
It's okay, Rikush. It's okay.
Oh my god.
I think that, does it track? I don't know if it retroactively tracks. You
I
might have
think
to go
as long
back.
as you see the well,
Oh.
yeah, you'll be able to tell them.
Okay.
I actually like how much the map marks if you found something
Yes.
there or not. I
Right.
think that's a really good quality of life feature. And speaking about quality of life features, I think that's the mistake zone for this week. So Matt, take it away.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of zoning devices.
Hey, but if you just equip your bow and then you press up on the D-pad